there was an announcement made last week that I think that caught everyone by surprise, that starting in 2025, the NASCAR Xfinity Series in its totality will move to the CW network, a network up until then that was known for, I would want to think, almost teenage and young people entertainment with shows like The Flash, Riverdale, Bump, Buffy Vampire Slayer.
I was a big fan.
That's right. I was a big Buffy fan.
I was a big fan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can mix sexy girls and vampire killing. You've got me for however many seasons that ran.
Yeah, no, it was a good show, and all the spinoffs too. I watched all those. Yeah, the CW, it was pretty big in the 90s and early 2000s.
Wait,
and I
our
think
producer
it still is,
Kent Bernhardt wants to chime in with a couple of names here. Go ahead, Kent.
Among the shows, One Tree Hill, wasn't that there?
Yep.
Whose
I
line
watched
is it
it.
anyway?
I
Is
watched
the
One
only
Tree
thing
Hill.
I watch there.
Oh,
right
whose
now.
line is it anyway? I love that. What a great show. We need to do an episode of that here.
But over time, they have been moving into the sports arena. They've got some live golf. They have 100 Days to Indy as a series.
They just did it, Indy 500.
that was really nice. And so they have realized the value of sports. So the network that gave us all that, and Supergirl, we left that out, by the way. So
How dare we?
They gave a lot of shows, but then this announcement kind of comes out of left field that they are going to pick up all of the Xfinity races in 2025. Alexis, what's your take on the CW coming in such a big way?
Well, my initial thought was, good for NASCAR for, kind of keeping something on the down low, because I certainly hadn't heard any rumors about that. Everything that we heard speculation-wise, or at least that I had leading up to this announcement, was that the Xfinity Series was most likely going to go exclusively behind a paywall, which undoubtedly ruffled some feathers, and people are like, we can't do that. We're going to lose exposure. We're going to lose all these things. And then, NASCAR comes out and says, well, you got it all wrong. We're actually putting it on an over-the-air channel, which is going to be way easier to access than the Xfinity Series has ever been before. So in that aspect, I think it's a huge win.
Yeah, listen, I think it's really big.
Yeah.
I think it's big in a lot of different ways. I think it's big for the Xfinity Series because now they have their own network. They are a standalone entity that will be broadcast to 99.9% of America, unlike some of the other streaming platforms, unlike some of the other sports channels, unlike some of the cable channels that our sport is shown on. I think it's a wider audience. So I think the Xfinity Series, and along with NASCAR and along with these sponsors and these young drivers, have the potential, after we look at it at the end of that first year, unless something drastically changes, to having more eyeballs on it than even the Cup Series in a lot of ways. And I know that's crazy to say. I know that's crazy to say. But the CW will take this, or has the potential to take this property and make it their own property. No one has ever, and maybe I'm wrong. You correct me, Doug, if you want to. The Busch beer was the only one I knew, because we called it the Busch Series, so it was Busch beer. And that was, no one has ever taken this redheaded stepchild and said, we want you. We want you. It's always, yeah, it's Saturday. Oh, it rained you out. We'll run you the morning of the Cup race. Oh, you guys can stay over till Tuesday or Wednesday. It was always that throwaway kind of series.
It's been disposable.
It's been disposable. Now you've got the CW who takes it and says, no, you're not disposable. You are our main property. And I think that says a lot for the Xfinity Series and the potential of where it can be. And I think it's a great call by NASCAR to separate it from all the other events that go on during the course of a weekend.
It's also going to be produced by NASCAR Productions, so in-house.
So it's their
right.
Yes,
right, and
so
nobody's going to treat it as good as they're going to treat it.
They're going to treat it that way because it's theirs.
Right.
It's theirs. It's their child. It's and we talk about it all the time, and I laugh about it. And I'm going to go on record and say I laugh about it all the time. Where names are made, Kyle Larson, William Byron, all these guys go back and win all the races. Names are made are these young guys coming up. Justin Haley came out of there. Some of those guys. You've got to let the Xfinity guys stand on their own a lot of times, I believe. So, I just think I think it's a great move all the way around for everybody. I don't see any losers in it.
All right, let me throw out this, and I know this is going to be highly unpopular. I tweeted out last week when I heard this that great, because maybe they will get a group of broadcasters, much like the Truck Series has.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same people do
Yep.
trucks week in and week out.
Yep.
It's Phil Parsons and
Michael Waltrip.
Waltrip, and they're kind of the anchors of that, and they may shift around the actual anchor. But they'll have their own dedicated group of broadcasters. What if you did this? And immediately I started seeing people lobbying for folks to come in and do this. Oh, I hope Mike Bagley's the anchor, or Alan Bestwick, or Adam Alexander. You name it. All of them are incredibly talented broadcasters. But what if you really went out and to the hinterlands and found a new group of people? You're starting with a new signal. Do we need to treat this like everything else and retread everybody that we've already seen, or do we bring in some new talent? And I'm not saying anything bad about the people doing races today. I'm friends with most of them.
Yeah, and we all do.
And we all
do races.
Yeah.
No. We all do races. And I will say this, because that's one of my first thoughts. And honestly, it is. I think you need that combination of the two,
right?
Because you have to have somebody in the truck or in the meetings who at least knows the history of, late model sportsman, Busch, Xfinity, and how the series got to where it's at. So you need a little bit of that. But no matter how many times and networks we go to, we project the vision to the fan through the same lens, because it's us talking about it. It's the same group. It's the same. I used to say this about, there were a few drivers and they would get fired and they'd show up somewhere else, and they'd get fired and they'd show up somewhere else, because owners were afraid to take a chance at that period of time on a young driver. They just went with an established commodity. I knew you were going to run 15th, but I hired you anyhow. I was afraid to hire that kid that I didn't know whether he was going to run 30th or win races. I just didn't take that gamble. I couldn't. And I think that's a gamble that I'd like to see, like you, the CW, take. Let me just throw a whole fresh group in here. Let me bring a group in. You've got 2 years, right? To 25. We got 24. We got a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just bring them in and start having class. And
Exactly.
Bring in people and let them start calling races, and let them start calling them on the side and hustle them and learning the process, and then plug and play and see how it goes with new names and new faces.
Why not use the same tagline and philosophy you're using for your race car drivers?
No.
Names are made here. Let's make some new broadcasters then while we're at it,
And listen, I talk about it all the time, and we talk about it, and I'm probably cutting my throat when I say this, and that's okay. But when I look across the board, whether it be NBC, whether it be Fox, the average age of all of us that do all the talking is probably mid-50s. You know what I mean? Easy mid-50s. You know what I mean? And I'm talking from Dale Jr. to me and Dale Jarrett to Brad Daugherty and if you look at the other group with Mike Joy and you look at them, you're in that range. You know what I mean? If we want to attract a younger audience, if we want to let's make it exciting. Let's entertain. You know what I mean? It can be a sport and entertaining at the same time.
My thought on this is, if you want new eyeballs watching this, then maybe they need to look at it through fresh eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
And not Doug Rice and Kyle Petty and Mark Garrow and who insert name here that have been doing this since Ben-Hur and Chariots.
I'm going to say one more thing. I'm going to say this one last thing. And this is a personal story from personal experience. I grew up going to the racetrack with my dad. Followed right along, raced, not a big deal. But when Adam came along, and I had been doing it so long, when we rolled into Daytona, it was like I was seeing Daytona for the first time.
Yeah.
Because he was so enthusiastic about it. When we rolled into Rockingham, it was like, oh my gosh, this is Rockingham. I'm going to get to go race. And to see the sport through his eyes made me excited about the sport again. So I think you're 100% correct. To see it through somebody else's eyes and through their voice changes the sport for the spectators and for the competitors.
Yeah. And here again, I'm not taking shots at any of the current broadcasters, but maybe you've got this once in a chance opportunity to introduce some fresh voices and new eyes to the game. Might be time to do it.